The border between human space and the Christian Empire had never been quiet, but today it felt like standing on the edge of a knife. Every ship, every station, every listening post watched and waited. One wrong move could start a war that would burn through half the galaxy. Captain Park Min-jun stood on the bridge of the battleship Soul's Promise and stared at the tactical display. Hundreds of ships floated in the darkness on both sides of the invisible line that separated the two powers. Human vessels on one side, painted in the white and blue of Earth Command. Christian warships on the other, their hulls dark red like dried blood. Nobody moved, nobody fired, but nobody relaxed either. "Status report," Park said quietly. His uniform was crisp despite the 14-hour shift. At 42 years old, he had spent half his life in space. He knew how quickly situations could fall apart. "All systems normal, Captain," Lieutenant Kim Dawn replied from the tactical station. She was younger, barely 30, but she had good instincts. "The Christians are holding position. No changes in their formation. Communications are the usual chatter. Diplomatic channels are active, but tense. Both sides are talking, but nobody's saying anything useful." Park nodded. That was how these standoffs worked. Leaders on both sides would argue and threaten while the ships waited in space, ready to kill each other at a moment's notice. It had been going on for 3 months now. A Christian colony ship had strayed into human territory. Human patrol ships had detained it. The Christians demanded its return. Humans wanted assurances it wasn't a military vessel in disguise. A simple problem, but pride made everything complicated. "Captain, incoming signal," the communications officer called out. "It's encrypted, personal encryption code." Park frowned. "Put it through to my ready room. Lieutenant Kim, you have the bridge." He walked into the small office behind the bridge and closed the door. The screens on his desk flickered to life, but no face appeared, just an audio signal heavily encoded. "This is Captain Park. Who am I speaking with?" Silence for a moment, then a voice, distorted and breaking up. "Please, help us. Dying plague. Empire abandoned. Please." The signal was weak, barely there. Park leaned forward. "Repeat your message. Where are you transmitting from?" "Colony. Christian Colony World designated RT7. They left us. Please. Children dying. Please help." The signal cut out. Park sat back in his chair. His mind raced through possibilities. This could be a trap, an elaborate Christian trick to lure human ships into their territory. But something about the desperation in that voice felt real. He pulled up the navigation charts. RT7 lay deep in Christian space, at least 15 light-years past the border, a small colony world, population around 200,000 according to old intelligence data. The door chimed. "Come in." Lieutenant Kim entered. "Sir, is everything all right?" Park looked at her for a long moment. "I received a distress call from inside Christian space." Her eyes widened. "Sir, that could be a trap." "I know." He stood up. "But what if it's not? We can't just cross the border. Earth Command would never approve it, and the Christians would consider it an act of war." "I know that too." Park walked past her, back onto the bridge. The crew looked up at their captain. Good people, all of them. They trusted him. He had never let them down. He thought about the voice on that transmission, the fear, the hope. Someone out there needed help, and they had reached out to humanity because they had nowhere else to turn. Park made his decision. Helm, plot a course into Christian space. Destination coordinates RT7. The bridge went silent. Every crew member turned to stare at him. "Captain," the helmsman said carefully, "did you say into Christian space?" "You heard correctly. Plot the course." Lieutenant Kim stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Sir, we need to discuss this. If we cross that border without authorization, then we'll face the consequences when we return." Park's voice was calm, but final. "There are people dying who asked for our help. That's all I need to know. Earth Command will order us back. Then they'll have to catch us first." He raised his voice to address the entire bridge. "I know what I'm asking. Any crew member who wants to transfer to another ship before we depart has my permission. No one will think less of you. This is my decision, not yours. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Lieutenant Kim straightened her shoulders. Requesting permission to remain at my post, sir. One by one, the other crew members echoed her. Park felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. He had the best crew in the fleet. Very well. Helm, execute course. Maximum speed. The Soul's Promise turned away from the border formation. Its engines flared bright blue in the darkness. And then it crossed the line into Christian territory. Alarms went off on every ship and every station on both sides of the border. Admiral Thalrix of the Christian Imperial Fleet was eating his evening meal when his aide burst into his quarters without knocking. That alone told him something serious had happened. Admiral, a human warship just crossed the border. Thalrix set down his utensil carefully. The Christians looked almost human, but taller and thinner, with gray skin and large black eyes. His face could show anger very clearly, and it did now. Which ship? The battleship Soul's Promise. It broke formation and entered our space approximately 3 minutes ago. Did it fire weapons? No, sir. It just crossed and is now accelerating deeper into our territory. Thalrix stood quickly. His mind worked through the possibilities as he strode toward the command center. This could be the start of the war everyone feared. A first strike. But why just one ship? Humans weren't stupid. One battleship couldn't win a war. He reached the command center and studied the tactical displays. The human ship was indeed racing into Christian space, moving fast. And behind it, the rest of the human fleet seemed just as confused as his own forces. Communications. Are we receiving any signals from the human ship? Nothing, Admiral. They're not responding to any hails. What about from Human Fleet Command? Multiple urgent transmissions ordering the Soul's Promise to return immediately. They appear to be ignoring them. This was strange. An unauthorized incursion. A rogue captain. Thalrix had studied human military structure. Its discipline was strong. This shouldn't be possible. Where is it heading? The navigation officer worked quickly. Current trajectory suggests, Admiral, this doesn't make sense. They're heading toward Sector 7. There's nothing there but minor colonies. Which colony? Calculating. RT7, sir. Thalrix felt his blood run cold. RT7. The quarantined colony. The one High Command had sealed off and ordered everyone to forget. The colony that was probably dead by now. Send our fastest interceptors. I want that ship stopped before it reaches RT7. Yes, Admiral. Should they fire on the human vessel? Thalrix hesitated. Starting a war with humanity was one thing, but if this captain knew about RT7, knew what the Empire had done, pursuit only. Do not fire unless fired upon. I want to know what that ship is doing. On Earth, in the underground military command center, General Rodriguez slammed her hand on the console. Someone explained to me how one of our battleships just invaded enemy territory. The room, full of officers and analysts, scrambled to provide answers. None of them had good ones. Captain Park's last scheduled report was 3 hours ago. Everything was normal. No indication of any problems. Well, clearly there's a problem now. Rodriguez pulled up the communication logs. Have we made contact? He's ignoring all our transmissions, General. Can we override his ship controls remotely? Not at this distance, and not with their communications restricted. Rodriguez forced herself to calm down. Losing her temper wouldn't help. What's his destination? Unknown, ma'am. He's heading deep into Christian space. Current trajectory suggests he might be going toward their inner colonies. Is this a suicide run? Is Park having some kind of breakdown? His psychological evaluations were all perfect, General. There's been no indication of any mental health issues. His crew hasn't reported any concerns. Then why is he doing this? Rodriguez looked at the star map, one small, representing the Soul's Promise, driving deeper into enemy territory, with a swarm of red dots converging on it from all sides. He's going to start a war, and we can't stop him. She opened an emergency channel to the Christian diplomatic mission. A gray face appeared on the screen, already angry. General Rodriguez, your ship is acting without authorization from Earth Command. Rodriguez spoke quickly. Ambassador, I want to be very clear. This is not a military operation. We did not order this. Captain Park is acting alone. You expect us to believe one of your captains simply decided to invade our territory? I don't expect you to believe anything. I'm telling you the facts. We are ordering Captain Park to return immediately. If he doesn't comply, you have our permission to disable his ship. We will not consider it an act of war. The ambassador's large eyes narrowed. You would allow us to fire on your own vessel? To prevent a war? Yes. But ambassador, I'm asking you to show restraint. Disable, not destroy. Whatever Captain Park is doing, his crew doesn't deserve to die for it. I will relay your message to High Command. But I make no promises, General. The screen went dark. Rodriguez sat back and rubbed her temples. 20 years in the military, and she had never seen anything like this. A decorated captain with a perfect record suddenly going rogue. It made no sense. Get me everything on Captain Park. Service record, personal history, recent communications, everything. There has to be a reason for this. On the Soul's Promise, Captain Park watched the tactical display as Christian ships closed in from multiple directions. His crew worked efficiently, their training keeping them focused despite the insanity of what they were doing. Captain, we have 12 Christian interceptors on our tail, Lieutenant Kim reported. They'll be in weapons range in 15 minutes. Evasive maneuvers, but don't fire on them. Sir, they might not give us the same courtesy. I know, but we're not here to fight. We're here to help. Help who, sir? Kim finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. What did that distress call say? Park looked at his first officer. She deserved to know the truth. There's a Christian colony at RT-7. They're suffering from a plague outbreak. They sent out distress calls, but their own empire abandoned them. Left them to die. We're going to help them. Kim stared at him. Sir, that's inside Christian space. That's their problem to solve. They're not solving it. They're letting 200,000 people die because it's easier than dealing with a plague. But we could start a war. Park's jaw tightened. Or maybe we'll show them that some things matter more than borders and politics. People asked for help. We're going to give it. Earth Command will court-martial you. Probably. But I'll sleep better than I would if I ignored that call. Kim looked at her captain for a long moment. Then she nodded. Then I guess we'd better make sure we actually help those people, sir. Weapons, keep shields at maximum, but hold all fire. Helm, get creative with those evasive patterns. Engineering, I want every bit of speed you can give us. The crew responded with determination. They might not fully understand why their captain was doing this, but they trusted him. And they would follow him into Christian space, into danger, because that's what good crews did. The Soul's Promise raced deeper into enemy territory, carrying medical supplies and hope to people who had been forgotten by their own kind. Behind it, 2 fleets mobilized for possible war. And ahead of it, a dying colony waited for salvation it never expected. The galaxy held its breath. The Christian interceptors came fast and angry. 12 sleek warships with weapons hot, closing in on the Soul's Promise like hunters after prey. Their commanders had their orders. Stop the human ship by any means necessary. Captain Park watched them on his tactical display and felt calm. He had known this would happen. Crossing into Christian space without permission was an act of war by any standard definition. But he also knew his ship and his crew were the best in the fleet. Status on those interceptors? 10 minutes to weapons range, Captain. Lieutenant Kim called out. They're spreading out, trying to surround us. Helm, pattern Delta 7. Keep us moving unpredictably. The Soul's Promise banked hard to starboard, then dove suddenly. Its engines burned bright as it accelerated at an angle the pursuing ships didn't expect. The helmsman's fingers danced across the controls with practiced skill. The Christian ships adjusted their course, but they had lost a few precious seconds. The Soul's Promise was fast for a battleship. Faster than it should be. Human engineering had always surprised other species. "They're hailing us, sir," the communications officer said. "Put it through." A Christian face appeared on the main screen. The alien looked furious. His gray skin darkened with anger, his large black eyes unblinking. "Human vessel, this is Commander Snor of the Imperial Interceptor Wing. You have violated Christian sovereign space. Power down your engines immediately and prepare to be boarded." Park kept his voice level and calm. "Commander, we are on a mercy mission. We received a distress call from one of your colonies. We're bringing medical assistance." "You lie. You have no authorization to be here. This is an invasion." "It's not an invasion. We're carrying medical supplies to help your people." Snor's expression twisted with disgust. "The Soul's Promise is a battleship, human. You are armed with enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. Do not insult my intelligence. We have weapons for defense only. We will not fire unless fired upon. Commander, please check with your superiors about Colony RT-7. They're dying from a plague. We just want to help. RT-7 is none of your concern. You will stop your ship now, or we will stop it for you." The transmission cut off. Lieutenant Kim looked at her captain. "Orders, sir. Continue on course. Evasive pattern Beta 3. Remind all stations, we do not fire first under any circumstances. Even if they fire on us? Even then, return fire only if absolutely necessary for survival. And even then, target engines and weapon systems only. No lethal shots if we can avoid them." Kim nodded and relayed the orders. Around the bridge, the crew worked with focused intensity. They were deep in enemy space now, with hostile forces closing in, and their captain had just told them they couldn't even defend themselves properly. But they didn't question him. That was the kind of trust Park had earned over years of command. The Christian interceptors opened fire. Bright bolts of energy lanced through space toward the Soul's Promise. The human ship rolled and twisted, its shields flaring as some shots connected. Damage reports came in, but nothing critical. "Return fire?" the weapons officer asked, his hand hovering over the controls. "Negative," Park said firmly. "Evasive maneuvers only." On the lead Christian interceptor, Commander Snor watched in confusion as the human battleship refused to shoot back. It dodged and weaved with impressive skill, absorbing hits on its shields, but its weapons stayed cold. "Why aren't they firing?" his tactical officer asked. "Unknown. Perhaps their weapons are malfunctioning." "Unlikely, sir. Our scans show all their systems are fully operational. They're choosing not to fire." Snor didn't understand. In Christian military culture, not fighting back was shameful. It showed weakness. But this human ship wasn't running away in fear. It was still heading toward its destination, still moving forward despite being under attack. Intensify fire. Target their engines. More weapons fire converged on the Soul's Promise. The human ship's shields blazed with absorbed energy. On the bridge, damage alarms rang out. "Shields down to 60%. Lieutenant Kim reported, her voice steady despite the ship shaking around them. "Hull integrity at 98%. Port stabilizer has minor damage. Reroute power to forward shields," Park ordered. "Helm, go to emergency speed. Engineering, I need everything you've got." Deep in the engine room, Chief Engineer Yoon-ji Ho read the captain's request and grinned despite the situation. "You heard the captain. Give him everything." The Soul's Promise surged forward with renewed speed. The sudden acceleration caught the Christian interceptors off guard. The human ship pulled ahead, opening the distance. "They're faster than our intelligence suggested," Snor muttered. "All ships, pursuit speed. Don't let them reach RT-7. But even as he gave the order, he wondered why that destination mattered. RT-7 was a quarantined colony, dead or dying. Why would the humans go there? What could they possibly want with a plague-infected world? Back on Earth, the command center was chaos. Every screen showed different angles of the crisis. Diplomatic channels were flooded with angry messages from the Christian Empire. Human fleet commanders demanded orders. And at the center of it all, General Rodriguez tried to prevent a war. "Status update," she demanded. The Soul's Promise is still evading Christian forces. Ma'am, they've taken some hits, but nothing critical. They're not returning fire. Rodriguez frowned. They're not shooting back? No, ma'am. Captain Park appears to be avoiding combat entirely. That was interesting. If Park wanted to start a war, he would be fighting, but he was running. Running toward something specific. Have we figured out where he's going yet? An analyst pulled up a star chart. Best guess based on his trajectory is a colony world designated RT7. It's not strategically important. Small population, minimal resources. Then why go there? Unknown, ma'am. We're still digging through Captain Park's recent communications and personal files. There has to be something we're missing. Rodriguez stared at the screen showing the tiny. That was the Soul's Promise. Surrounded by hostile forces, refusing to fight back, but still pushing forward. Captain Park was risking his ship, his crew, his career, and possibly starting a galactic war. There had to be a reason. Keep digging, and get me a secure line to the Christian High Command. If we can't stop Park, maybe we can at least warn them what he's doing. In the Christian capital city of CRI Prime, the High Command Council chamber was filled with angry voices. The circular room held the most powerful military and political leaders of the Empire. And right now, they were all shouting at once. This is an act of war. We must respond with overwhelming force. Destroy that human ship immediately. Admiral Thalrix stood before the council and waited for the noise to die down. He was a senior officer, respected and feared, and when he wanted silence, he eventually got it. The human ship is not firing back, he said once he could be heard. It is evading our forces, but making no offensive moves. That doesn't matter. One of the counselors snapped. It violated our borders. Yes, it did. But before we start a war with humanity, perhaps we should understand why. The ship is heading toward RT7. The chamber went very quiet. Several counselors looked uncomfortable. RT7 was a topic they had agreed never to discuss. RT7 is quarantined, another counselor said carefully. There is nothing there. There are 200,000 Christian citizens there, Thalrix replied, his voice hard. Or there were before we abandoned them. They were infected with the plague. We had no choice. We had a choice. We chose to let them die rather than risk the resources to help them. The council members shifted uncomfortably. None of them wanted to discuss this. The quarantine of RT7 had been a difficult decision, made easier by the fact that the colony was small and politically unimportant. Letting them die was practical, cost-effective, but not something any of them were proud of. What does this have to do with the human ship? The council leader asked. I believe, Thalrix said slowly, that the humans know about RT7, and I believe they're going there to help. That's impossible. How would they know? Perhaps someone from the colony managed to send a distress signal before communications were cut off. Perhaps that signal reached human space. The counselors looked at each other with growing unease. If the humans knew the Empire had abandoned a colony to die, it would make the Christians look heartless. And if the humans were going there to help, it would make them look even worse by comparison. We can't allow human ships near RT7, one counselor said. If they find evidence of the plague, they could use it against us, biological warfare claims, violations of galactic health protocols. We violated those protocols when we abandoned the colony, Thalrix interrupted. The humans going there to help makes them look noble, and us look like monsters. Then we destroy their ship before they arrive. And confirm to the entire galaxy that we're willing to kill those who try to help our own people? Thalrix shook his head. That might be worse. The council fell silent, trapped by the consequences of their own choices. On the Soul's Promise, Lieutenant Kim reviewed the tactical situation and didn't like what she saw. More Christian ships were converging on their position. The initial 12 interceptors had been joined by another 20 vessels, with more on the way. Captain, we have a problem. Long-range scans show a Christian battle group moving to intercept us, 3 heavy cruisers and 24 support craft. They'll reach us in approximately 4 hours. Park nodded. He had expected this. Can we reach RT7 before they arrive? If we maintain current speed, and they don't send faster ships ahead, yes. Barely. Then that's what we do. Sir, even if we reach the colony, we'll be surrounded. They won't let us leave. I know. One problem at a time, Lieutenant. Kim wanted to argue, but knew it would do no good. Her captain had made his decision. Now they all had to live with it, or die with it. She looked around the bridge at the crew. They looked scared but determined. Good people doing their best in an impossible situation. She felt proud to serve with them. Helm steady as she goes. Communications, I want continuous scans for any changes in the Christian fleet positions. Weapons, keep shields at maximum. And someone tell engineering that Chief Yoon better keep those engines running at peak performance, or I'm coming down there personally. Despite the tension, a few crew members smiled. Lieutenant Kim was known for her threats to visit engineering, and Chief Yoon always swore she was bad luck for his machinery. Down in engineering, Yoon heard the message and laughed. Tell the lieutenant my engines are purring like kittens. Beautiful, deadly, very fast kittens. His team grinned and kept working. The engines were being pushed harder than recommended, but they would hold. They had to. Hours passed in a blur of evasive maneuvers and near misses. The Christian interceptors stayed on their tail, firing constantly but unable to land a decisive hit. The Soul's Promise twisted and dodged through space like a ship half its size. Approaching RT-7 system, the navigator announced. Entering outer orbital range now. Park stood up from his chair. Scan the planet. I want to know what we're dealing with. The sensors officer worked quickly, then looked up with a grim expression. Captain, I'm reading multiple population centers. Some signs of power generation, but much less than expected for a colony this size. Lots of distress beacons. Medical emergency frequencies. Sir, it looks bad down there. Life signs. Scanning, approximately 170,000 Christian life signs. Down from the 200,000 this colony should have. Sir, they're dying. The bridge went quiet. Everyone understood now why they had come, why their captain had risked everything. Those weren't just numbers on a display. Those were people dying while their own government did nothing. Communications, broadcast on all Christian frequencies. Tell them we're here to help. The message went out. On the colony below, in hospitals filled with the dying, in homes where families watched loved ones suffer, in government buildings where exhausted administrators had given up hope, the message was received. A human ship had come. The species they feared, the enemy their empire had warned them about, had crossed hostile space to bring help. Many didn't believe it. Some thought it was a trick. But others, desperate and dying, allowed themselves to hope. On RT-7's small orbital station, Colony Administrator Venlas received the human transmission with shaking hands. She had been the one to send out the secret distress calls, knowing it could be considered treason. She had sent them to everyone, to anyone who might listen. She had never imagined the humans would be the ones to answer. Respond to them, she told her communications officer, her voice cracking with emotion. Tell them they're welcome. Tell them we need them. Tell them. Thank them. The Soul's Promise entered orbit around RT-7. Behind it, the Christian fleet arrived and surrounded the planet. Dozens of warships, all with weapons trained on the single human battleship. Admiral Thalrix arrived on his flagship and stared at the tactical display. The human ship sat there, orbiting the quarantined colony, making no threatening moves, just sitting there, surrounded by enough firepower to turn it into dust. Hail them, he ordered. Captain Park's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but calm. Admiral Thalrix, I presume. Captain Park, you have led us on quite a chase. I apologize for the inconvenience. We came to help your colony. They're dying down there. I know what is happening on RT-7, Captain. That does not give you permission to violate our territory. With respect, Admiral. No one was helping them. They asked. We answered. Thalrix felt something uncomfortable twist in his chest. Shame, an emotion Christians were not supposed to feel in military matters. Our protocols. Your protocols left them to die, Park interrupted. We have medical supplies, doctors experienced with plague treatment equipment that might save lives. Let us help. And if I refuse? Then you condemn your own people while turning away those who came to save them. Is that the kind of officer you want to be, Admiral? The question hit harder than any weapon. Thalrix looked at the human captain and saw no deception, no hidden agenda. Just a man trying to do the right thing. Stand by, Captain. I must consult with my superiors. He cut the transmission and sat back in his command chair. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They had heard the exchange. They knew what was at stake. He thought about his career, his honor, his duty to the Empire. Then he thought about 200,000 Christians dying below while he had the power to save them. He opened a channel to High Command. The choice ahead would define him forever. Admiral Thalrix stood alone in his ready room and stared at the screen showing the faces of the Christian High Command. 5 counselors looked back at him, and none of them looked happy. Admiral, the lead counselor said coldly, you have the human ship in your sights. Why has it not been destroyed? Because, Counselor, I believe we should hear what they have to say. What they have to say. The counselor's gray skin darkened with anger. They invaded our territory. There is nothing to discuss. They claim they're here to help RT-7. The 5 counselors went very still. One of them leaned forward. That colony is quarantined. It is not a matter for discussion with aliens, especially humans. The human captain has medical supplies and doctors. He wants permission to land and assist the colonists. Absolutely not. The situation at RT-7 is an internal matter. We will not allow humans to interfere. Thalrix felt his jaw tighten. Counselor, there are 170,000 Christians still alive on that planet, down from 200,000. They're dying while we debate politics. They were dying before the humans arrived. The situation has not changed. It has changed. Now we have a choice. We can accept help and save our people, or we can refuse and let them die to save our pride. Another counselor spoke up. Admiral, you forget your place. High Command makes decisions of policy. Your role is to follow orders and defend the Empire. I have not forgotten my role, Counselor, but I am standing here with a human battleship in my weapons range, surrounded by my fleet. And that ship is not shooting at us. It's broadcasting medical aid offers on every frequency. How do you think that looks to the galaxy? The galaxy does not need to know about RT-7. The humans already know. They came here because the colony sent distress signals. If we destroy that ship, humanity will want to know why we killed their people for trying to save ours. The counselors exchanged uncomfortable looks. Thalrix pressed his advantage. And if we let them help, if we accept their assistance and save our colony, we look strong. We look like a people who value life over politics. But if we refuse and let our own citizens die rather than accept human help, we look like monsters. You overstep your authority, Admiral. Perhaps. But I am the one here facing this situation. Not you, safe in the capital. Silence stretched. Finally, the lead counselor spoke again. We will discuss this matter. You are ordered to maintain your position and prevent the human ship from landing. Do not destroy it yet, but do not allow it to proceed. Is that understood? Understood, Counselor. The transmission ended. Thalrix stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of what he had just done. Challenging High Command was dangerous. Questioning their decisions was career-ending at best. But he had seen the sensor scans of RT-7. He had read the reports of the plague. He knew what was happening down there, and he couldn't pretend it didn't matter. He returned to the bridge. Status on the human ship? Holding position in orbit, Admiral. They're running continuous scans of the planet's surface. No weapons active. Shields at standard defensive levels. Hail them again. Captain Park appeared on the screen once more. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, but his eyes were still sharp. Admiral, have you reached a decision? High Command is discussing your request, Captain. In the meantime, you are ordered to maintain your current position. Do not attempt to land. Park nodded slowly. How long will this discussion take, Admiral? People are dying while politicians debate. I am aware of that. Are you? Have you seen the medical scans? The plague is spreading. Every hour we wait, more people die. Children, families, your people. Thalrix felt that uncomfortable shame again. Captain Park, I understand your concern, but there are procedures. Procedures. Park's calm finally cracked. Admiral, respectfully, procedures are what got this colony abandoned in the first place. Someone decided it was too expensive, too risky, too much trouble to help. So they wrote it off, filed the paperwork, followed procedures, and left 200,000 people to die. You do not understand our situation. I understand that people need help, and we can provide it. Everything else is just excuses. Silence fell between them. My orders are clear, Captain, Thalrix said at last. You will not land on RT-7. And if I disobey, then I will be forced to stop you. Park looked tired. Then I guess we both have difficult choices ahead of us, Admiral. The transmission ended. On the Soul's promise, Lieutenant Kim approached her captain. Sir, what are we going to do? We're going to wait and give them time to make the right choice. And if they don't? Park didn't answer. He didn't have a good one. He had brought his ship and crew here on what might be a futile mission. The Christian government might decide to let its people die rather than accept human help. And if that happened, there was nothing he could do. Captain, incoming transmission. It's from the planet's surface. Put it through. A Christian woman appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted. Her gray skin pale, her large eyes red from crying or exhaustion or both. But she held herself with dignity. Human Captain, I am Colony Administrator Venlas. I want to thank you for coming. We sent distress calls to everyone we could reach. You are the first to answer. Park felt his throat tighten. We are here to help, Administrator. We have medical supplies and experienced doctors. If your government gives us permission, we can begin treatment immediately. Our government? She smiled bitterly. Our government declared us dead 3 months ago. They cut off all communications, all supply lines, all aid. They told the galaxy we were under quarantine for public health reasons. They told us to die quietly and not make trouble. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, Captain. Be angry. I am. We are just a small colony, not important enough to save. The resources required to help us were apparently too expensive. So they wrote us off. On his flagship, Admiral Thalrix listened to the transmission. All Christian ships in the area were receiving it. Venlas was broadcasting her words to the entire fleet. Administrator Venlas, this is Admiral Thalrix. You are transmitting on military frequencies. I know, Admiral. I want your crews to hear this. I want them to know what their government did to us. We're not rebels. We're not criminals. We're just ordinary Christians who got sick, and our empire decided we weren't worth saving. The quarantine was necessary to prevent the plague from spreading. The quarantine was murder, Admiral, and we both know it. But now these humans, these aliens we've been told to fear, they came to help us. They risked war, risked their own lives to bring us medicine. What does that say about us? About our empire? Thalrix had no answer. Around him, his bridge crew looked uneasy. They were hearing the truth they had all suspected, but never spoken. Venlas continued, her voice growing stronger. Human Captain, even if you can't land, even if your government and ours decide to let us die, thank you. Thank you for caring when no one else did. Thank you for proving that humanity is worth something. Park's voice was thick with emotion. We're not giving up, Administrator. Hold on. We'll find a way. I believe you will. Venlas out. The transmission ended, but the silence that followed was heavy with meaning. On Earth, General Rodriguez listened to the recording of Venlas's transmission and felt her anger grow. The Christians had abandoned a colony and lied about it, and Captain Park had uncovered their secret. Get me the Christian diplomatic mission again, she ordered. The gray face of the ambassador appeared on her screen. He looked uncomfortable. General Rodriguez. Ambassador, I just heard a very interesting transmission from RT-7. Would you care to explain why your government abandoned 200,000 citizens to die? That is an internal matter. It became an international matter when one of my captains risked everything to help them. Ambassador, my captain crossed your borders without permission. That was wrong. But he did it to save lives your government threw away. How exactly am I supposed to punish him for that? The ambassador had no good answer. Rodriguez pressed forward. Here's what's going to happen. Captain Park and the Soul's Promise are going to land on RT-7. They're going to provide medical assistance to your abandoned colonists. And your government is going to allow this to happen. Do you know why, General? Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure every species in the galaxy knows the Christian Empire lets its own people die and attacks those who try to help them. Your government will be known as the regime that cared more about pride than lives. Is that the legacy you want? The ambassador's expression showed he understood the threat. I will relay your message to High Command. You do that, and tell them they have 1 hour to make the right choice. After that, Captain Park is landing with or without permission, and the galaxy will watch what happens next. Rodriguez cut the transmission and looked at her staff. Get me every media contact we have. Prepare to release Administrator Venliz's transmission to every news outlet in human space. If the Christians refuse to help their own people, we'll make sure everyone knows about it. On CRI Prime, the High Command Council chamber erupted in chaos again. The recording of Venliz's transmission had reached the capital. Worse, it had been leaked to public networks. Ordinary Christian citizens were hearing about RT-7 for the first time, and they were not happy. This is a disaster. How did this information become public? The humans will use this against us. The humans already are using it against us, the lead counselor said grimly. Earth Command has given us an ultimatum. Allow their ship to help RT-7, or they'll make sure the entire galaxy knows we abandoned our own colony. We cannot allow humans to dictate our internal policies, and we cannot let them reveal our actions to the galaxy either. Either choice makes us look weak. One of the quieter counselors spoke up. Perhaps there is a third option. We allow the humans to land and help, but we claim it was always our intention to accept outside assistance. We save face by saying we were coordinating with humanity all along. That's a lie. It's politics. We look magnanimous for accepting help. The colony gets saved. The humans look like heroes, but we avoid looking like monsters. Everyone wins. The council members considered this. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than the alternatives. And Admiral Thalrix? He challenged our authority. We can deal with the Admiral later. Right now, we need to control this situation before it destroys us completely. The lead counselor nodded slowly. Very well. We will authorize the human ship to land. Send the order to Admiral Thalrix immediately. Back at RT-7, Admiral Thalrix received the new orders and read them carefully. High Command had chosen politics over principles, but at least they had chosen to let the colony receive help. He opened a channel to the Soul's Promise. Captain Park, I have received updated orders from High Command. Park's expression was guarded. Yes, Admiral? You are authorized to land on RT-7 and provide medical assistance to the colony. The Christian Empire appreciates your humanitarian efforts and welcomes cooperation in this medical crisis. Park's eyebrows rose. The carefully political wording was obvious. Is that the official statement, Admiral? It is. And what's your personal statement? Thalrix paused, then chose honesty. My personal statement is that you shamed us into doing the right thing, Captain. And I'm grateful you did. Those people deserve to live. Park smiled slightly. Thank you, Admiral. That means more than the official statement. Requesting coordinates for the main medical facility. Transmitting now, Captain. My medical teams will be standing by to assist your efforts. We may have abandoned these people initially, but I will not abandon them now. I'm glad to hear that, Admiral. Soul's Promise out. The human battleship broke orbit and descended toward the planet's surface. In hospitals and homes across RT-7, the colonists watched the sky and waited. Help was finally coming. Administrator Venliz stood on the landing platform as the Soul's Promise settled onto the concrete with a rumble that shook the ground. The ship was massive up close, scarred from weapons fire, its hull still radiating heat from atmospheric entry. A boarding ramp extended, and humans emerged wearing medical uniforms, carrying equipment. They looked so strange to Venla's. Shorter than Christians, with different proportions, varied skin tones, and hair covering their heads. Aliens. The enemy. The people her government had warned her about. And they had come to save her people. Captain Park walked down the ramp and approached her. He was average height for a human, with dark hair and tired eyes that still held determination. He stopped in front of her and bowed slightly. Administrator Venlas. I'm Captain Park Min-jun. We're here to help. Venlas felt the tears she had been holding back for months finally fall. Thank you, Captain. Thank you for not abandoning us like everyone else did. Park reached out carefully and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. We don't abandon people who ask for help. That's not who we are. Behind him, his medical teams were already unloading supplies and coordinating with local doctors, humans and Christians working together, bridging the gap between species with shared purpose. It was the beginning of something new, something that would change everything. Dr. Lee Soo-jin stepped into the largest hospital on RT-7 and stopped breathing for a moment. The smell hit her first, antiseptic mixed with sickness and death. Then the sounds, moaning, crying, medical equipment beeping desperately. Then the sight, beds filled with dying Christians, more patients lying on the floor because there were no more beds. She had seen bad situations before, disaster zones, war zones, places where medicine failed and people died despite everyone's best efforts. But this was different. This was preventable. This colony had been abandoned by choice, and these people were dying because someone had decided they weren't worth saving. Dr. Lee, a Christian physician, approached her. He looked exhausted, his gray skin pale and unhealthy. I am Dr. Realmoth. Thank you for coming. We need help, desperately. Lee nodded and pushed her emotions aside. She could be angry later. Right now, people needed her focused. Show me your worst cases first. And I need a full briefing on the plague, symptoms, progression, what treatments you've tried. Realmoth led her deeper into the hospital. The plague attacks the respiratory system initially. Fever, coughing, difficulty breathing. Then it spreads to other organs, liver, kidneys, brain. Most patients die within 3 weeks of infection. We've tried every treatment we know. Nothing works for long. Mortality rate, 87%. Lee felt her stomach drop. That was catastrophic. And you've had this plague for how long? 3 months. It appeared suddenly in one of the farming communities. We reported it immediately to the Empire. They sent a medical team, but when they realized how deadly and contagious it was, they evacuated and declared us quarantined. Then they cut off all communications and supply lines. They just left you? Yes. Realmoth's voice was bitter. We had medicine for perhaps 2 weeks. After that, we've been trying to keep people comfortable while they die. We've lost 30,000 citizens already. We'll lose the rest within another month if nothing changes. Lee looked around at the dying patients, then back at Realmoth, seeing the pain in his eyes. A doctor watching his patients die, unable to help them. She knew that pain. We're going to change that. Dr. Realmoth, I need blood samples from multiple patients at different stages of infection. I need tissue samples if you have them. And I need your complete medical database on this plague. Can you get me that within the hour? He nodded quickly. Yes. Good. My team brought portable laboratory equipment and medical supplies. We also brought experimental treatments that have worked on similar plagues. We're going to figure this out. For the first time in months, Realmoth felt something like hope. You really think you can help? I don't know yet, Lee admitted. But I promise you we're going to try everything possible. You didn't give up on your patients, Doctor. We won't give up on them either. In another part of the hospital, Lieutenant Kim Dawn worked with the Soul's Promise medical team to unload supplies. Boxes of medicine, advanced diagnostic equipment, oxygen generators, for fluids. Everything the colony had been desperately lacking. A small crowd of Christian civilians had gathered to watch. They looked at the humans with expressions Kim couldn't quite read. Fear, suspicion, gratitude. Probably all of them mixed together. A young Christian child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, stood at the front of the crowd. She was small, with large eyes that seemed too big for her thin face. She watched Kim with intense curiosity. Kim smiled and waved. The child didn't wave back. But she didn't run away either. Kim picked up a small box of supplies and walked over. "Hi there. What's your name?" "Lyra," the child said softly. "That's a pretty name. I'm Kim. Are you here because someone in your family is sick?" Lyra nodded. "My mother. She's inside. She's very sick." Kim felt her heart tighten. "I'm sorry. Our doctors are going to help her. Okay? That's why we came." "Why?" Lyra asked with blunt honesty. "You're humans. We're supposed to be enemies." "Who told you that?" "Everyone. The government, the teachers. They said humans are dangerous." Kim knelt down to her level. "Does your mother seem dangerous to you?" Lyra looked confused. "My mother? No. She's nice." "Exactly. Just because governments say people are enemies doesn't make it true. Sometimes people are just people and they need help. And other people want to help them. That's all that matters." "So you came all this way just to help us?" "We did." Lyra thought for a moment, then stepped forward and hugged Kim around the waist. Kim was so surprised she almost dropped the box. But she recovered quickly and hugged the child back. "Thank you," Lyra whispered. "Thank you for helping my mother." Kim blinked back tears. This was why they had come. "You're welcome, sweetie. Now let's get these supplies inside so our doctors can start helping people." Across the colony, similar scenes unfolded. Human and Christian medical personnel working together, sharing knowledge and resources. The language barrier was difficult at times, but medical urgency bridged the gap. Captain Park walked through the medical facilities with Administrator Venlas, observing the coordinated relief efforts. "Your people work quickly," Venlas said. "They've only been here 4 hours, and they've already treated nearly 100 patients. We train for disaster response, and Dr. Lee is one of the best epidemiologists in human space. If anyone can figure out this plague, it's her." "I hope you're right, Captain. We're running out of time." Park knew that was true. Even with human help, the plague was spreading faster than they could treat it. The border between human space and the Christian Empire had never been quiet, but today it felt like standing on the edge of a knife. Every ship, every station, every listening post watched and waited. One wrong move could start a war that would burn through half the galaxy. Captain Park Min-jun stood on the bridge of the battleship Soul's Promise and stared at the tactical display. Hundreds of ships floated in the darkness on both sides of the invisible line that separated the two powers. Human vessels on one side, painted in the white and blue of Earth Command. Christian warships on the other, their hulls dark red like dried blood. Nobody moved. Nobody fired. But nobody relaxed either. "Status report," Park said quietly. His uniform was crisp despite the 14-hour shift. At 42 years old, he had spent half his life in space. He knew how quickly situations could fall apart. "All systems normal, Captain," Lieutenant Kim Dawn replied from the tactical station. She was younger, barely 30, but she had good instincts. "The Christians are holding position. No changes in their formation. Communications are the usual chatter. Diplomatic channels are active but tense. Both sides are talking, but nobody's saying anything useful." Park nodded. That was how these standoffs worked. Leaders on both sides argued and threatened while the ships waited in space, ready to kill each other at a moment's notice. It had been going on for 3 months now. A Christian colony ship had strayed into human territory. Human patrol ships had detained it. The Christians demanded its return. Humans wanted assurances it wasn't a military vessel in disguise. A simple problem, but pride made everything complicated. "Captain, incoming signal," the communications officer called out. "It's encrypted. Personal encryption code." Park frowned. "Put it through to my ready room." "Lieutenant Kim, you have the bridge." He walked into the small office behind the bridge and closed the door. The screens flickered to life, but no face appeared. Just an audio signal, heavily encoded. "This is Captain Park. Who am I speaking with?" Silence for a moment. Then a distorted, breaking voice. Please help us. Dying, plague, empire abandoned. Please. The signal was weak, barely there. Park leaned forward. Repeat your message. Where are you transmitting from? Colony, Christian Colony World. Designated RT7. They left us. Please. Children dying. Please help. The signal cut out. Park sat back in his chair, mind racing. This could be a trap. An elaborate Christian trick to lure human ships into their territory. But something about the desperation in that voice felt real. He pulled up navigation charts. RT7, deep in Christian space, at least 15 light-years past the border. A small colony world. Population around 200,000, according to old intelligence data. The door chimed. Come in. Lieutenant Kim entered. Sir, is everything all right? Park looked at her for a long moment. I received a distress call from inside Christian space. Her eyes widened. Sir, that could be a trap. I know. He stood. But what if it's not? We can't just cross the border. Earth Command would never approve it. And the Christians would consider it an act of war. I know that too. Park walked back onto the bridge. The crew looked up at their captain. Good people, all of them. They trusted him. He had never let them down. He thought about the voice on that transmission, the fear, the hope. Someone out there needed help, and they had reached out to humanity because they had nowhere else to turn. Park made his decision. Helm, plot a course into Christian space. Destination, RT7. The bridge went silent. Every crew member turned to stare at him. Captain, the helmsman said carefully, did you say into Christian space? You heard correctly. Plot the course. Lieutenant Kim stepped closer, lowering her voice. Sir, we need to discuss this. If we cross that border without authorization, then we'll face the consequences when we return. His voice was calm but final. There are people dying who asked for our help. That's all I need to know. Earth Command will order us back. Then they'll have to catch us first. He raised his voice to address the entire bridge. I know what I'm asking. Any crew member who wants to transfer to another ship before we depart has my permission. No one will think less of you. This is my decision, not yours. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Lieutenant Kim straightened her shoulders. Requesting permission to remain at my post, sir. One by one, the rest of the crew echoed her. Park felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. He had the best crew in the fleet. Very well. Helm, execute course. Maximum speed. The Soul's Promise turned away from the border formation. Its engines flared bright blue in the darkness. And then it crossed the line into Christian territory. Alarms went off on every ship and station on both sides of the border. Admiral Thalrix of the Christian Imperial Fleet was eating his evening meal when his aide burst into his quarters without knocking. That alone told him something serious had happened. Admiral, a human warship just crossed the border. Thalrix set down his utensil carefully. Which ship? The battleship Soul's Promise. It broke formation and entered our space approximately 3 minutes ago. Did it fire weapons? No, sir. It's accelerating deeper into our territory. Thalrix stood quickly, mind racing. This could be the start of the war everyone feared. But why just one ship? Humans weren't stupid. One battleship couldn't win a war. He reached the command center and studied the tactical display. The human ship was indeed racing into Christian space, moving fast. Behind it, the rest of the human fleet seemed just as confused as his own forces. Communications. Are we receiving any signals from the human ship? Nothing, Admiral. They're not responding to any hails. What about from Human Fleet Command? Multiple urgent transmissions ordering the Soul's Promise to return immediately. They're being ignored. Thalrix frowned. An unauthorized incursion. A rogue captain. That shouldn't be possible. Where is it heading? The navigation officer worked quickly. Current trajectory suggests, Admiral, this doesn't make sense. They're heading towards Sector 7. There's nothing there but minor colonies. Which colony? Calculating. RT7, sir. Thalrix felt his blood go cold. RT7. The quarantined colony. The one high command had sealed off and ordered everyone to forget. Send our fastest interceptors. I want that ship stopped before it reaches RT-7. Yes, Admiral. Should they fire? Thalrix hesitated. Pursuit only. Do not fire unless fired upon. I want to know what that ship is doing. Hours later, the Soul's Promise reached orbit over RT-7. Below them, a dying world. Life signs had dropped from 200,000 to 170,000 and falling. Distress beacons flooded every frequency. Broadcast on all Christian channels, Park ordered. Tell them we're here to help. The message went out. On the surface, in hospitals filled with the dying, in homes where families watched loved ones suffer, hope flickered for the first time in months. A human ship had come. Soon, the Christian fleet arrived, surrounding the planet. Dozens of warships, weapons trained on the lone human battleship. Admiral Thalrix opened a channel. Captain Park, you have led us on quite a chase. I apologize for the inconvenience, Admiral. We came to help your colony. They're dying down there. I am aware. That does not give you permission to violate our territory. With respect, no one was helping them. They asked, we answered. Thalrix felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. Shame. Stand by, Captain. I must consult with High Command. What followed was politics, pressure, and truth exposed to the entire galaxy. The Christian Empire had abandoned its own people. Humanity had come to save them. In the end, pride lost. Permission was granted. The Soul's Promise landed. Humans stepped onto alien soil, not as conquerors but as healers. Doctors worked tirelessly. Supplies were unloaded. Treatments began. At first, survival seemed impossible. Then Dr. Lee made a breakthrough. An antiviral treatment slowed the plague. Patients stabilized. Lives were saved. A child named Lyra, once hours from death, became the first clear success. Hope spread faster than the disease. Within days, mortality rates dropped dramatically. Christian and human doctors worked side by side. What began as a near war became something else entirely. Cooperation, understanding, a fragile bridge between two species. In orbit, Admiral Thalrix watched the reports come in. He had defied expectations, questioned authority, risked his career, but he had done the right thing. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. These people were alive because he had chosen conscience over orders. His communications officer called out, Admiral, incoming transmission from Captain Park on the surface. Put him through. Park appeared on the screen, looking exhausted but happy. Admiral, I wanted to update you personally. The treatment is working. We're saving lives. Dr. Lee estimates that with continued treatment and support, we can save 90% of the remaining colonists. That is excellent news, Captain. I have also received word that the High Command is sending additional medical teams and supplies. They are, shall we say, eager to be seen as supportive of this effort. Park smiled slightly. Politics, as always, but the result is what matters. Your mission has succeeded, Captain Park. You crossed into enemy territory and started what could have been a war. Instead, you saved thousands of lives and possibly created a path toward peace between our peoples. I just answered a distress call, Admiral. Anyone would have done the same. No, Captain. Most would not have. That is what makes humanity special. I think you care, even when it costs you everything. Park didn't know how to respond to that, so he simply nodded. Thalrix continued, I have been thinking about our conversation earlier. You asked what kind of officer I wanted to be. I know now. I want to be the kind of officer who makes the right choice, even when it's difficult. Thank you for showing me what that looks like. Thank you for making that choice, Admiral. These people are alive because you let us help them. The transmission ended, and both commanders returned to their duties. But something had changed between them, between their peoples. A bridge had been built in the most unlikely circumstances. The plague on RT-7 was not defeated yet, but it was no longer certain death, and that made all the difference. 3 weeks after the Soul's Promise landed on RT-7, the transformation of the colony was remarkable. The emergency medical crisis had stabilized. Patients were recovering. The mortality rate had dropped to less than 5% for new infections, and Dr. Lee's team was close to developing a complete cure rather than just a treatment. But success had brought new complications. Captain Park stood in the colony's administrative building and looked at the crowd of Christian officials who had arrived from the central government. They all wanted to be seen as part of the relief effort now that it was succeeding. Politicians who had voted to abandon the colony 3 months ago now gave speeches about Christian resilience and cooperation with humanity. It made Park tired. "Captain Park, I must congratulate you on your successful mission." The speaker was High Counselor Vexner, one of the most powerful politicians in the Christian Empire. He smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "The Empire is grateful for your assistance in this medical crisis. The assistance you required after abandoning your own people," Park said quietly. The smile on Vexner's face froze. Around the room, other officials shifted uncomfortably. Park's translator officer looked nervous. Speaking truth to powerful politicians was dangerous, even in human space. In Christian space, it could be fatal. "Captain, that is an oversimplification of a complex situation." "Is it?" "From where I'm standing, it looks simple. Your citizens got sick. You decided helping them was too expensive or too risky, so you cut them off and left them to die. Then, when we came to help, you tried to stop us. And now that we've succeeded, you want credit for it." Vexner's gray skin darkened with anger. "You forget yourself, human. You are a guest here. I'm a guest who saved 170,000 lives that you were ready to write off. So yes, I'm going to speak honestly about what happened here." "Captain Park," Administrator Venlas spoke up carefully. "Perhaps we should focus on the positive outcomes rather than assigning blame for past decisions." Park looked at her and saw the plea in her eyes. She was asking him to be diplomatic, not to make things worse for her colony. He understood. These politicians held power over RT7's future. Angering them could have consequences for the people he had come to help. He forced himself to calm down. "You're right, Administrator. The important thing is that we succeeded in saving lives. I apologize if I caused offense, High Counselor." Vexner nodded stiffly. "Your passion is understandable, Captain, if misplaced. Now we should discuss the timeline for your departure. The crisis has passed, and surely your ship is needed elsewhere. My medical team needs another 2 weeks to ensure the treatment protocols are fully established and your local doctors can manage ongoing care." 2 weeks? That seems excessive. I'm sure the Crithian medical teams can handle things from here. Park bit back his first response and tried diplomacy. "With respect, High Counselor, the same medical establishment that couldn't save these people 3 months ago, Dr. Lee wants to make certain the treatment protocols are properly understood and implemented before we leave." Before Vexner could respond, the door opened and Admiral Thalrix entered. The officials all turned to look at him. Thalrix had become something of a controversial figure in Christian politics. His decision to allow the human ship to land had been vindicated by success, but his earlier challenges to the High Command had not been forgotten. "High Counselor, Captain Park, I apologize for the interruption." "Admiral, what brings you to the surface? I have news that affects both our peoples." Thalrix looked around the room. "Perhaps we should speak privately. Anything you need to say can be said in front of these officials," Vexner declared. Thalrix hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. I have received reports from multiple sources. The story of what happened at RT7 has spread throughout the galaxy. Human media has been covering it extensively. Other species have taken notice." "So?" Vexner looked annoyed. "What does galactic gossip matter to us?" "It matters because 3 other Crithian colonies have now sent distress signals. They're experiencing different emergencies: famine, equipment failures, environmental disasters. All of them are minor colonies that the central government hasn't deemed worth full support, and all of them are asking specifically for human assistance." The room went silent. Park felt a headache forming. He had come here to help one colony in crisis. He hadn't intended to start a galactic movement. Vexner's expression was furious. "This is unacceptable. These colonies are Christian territory. They should request help from the Empire, not from aliens. They did request help from the Empire, Thalrix said quietly. Months ago, in some cases, they were told resources weren't available or that their problems weren't high priority. Now they've seen what happened here, and they're reaching out to the people who actually answered. You cannot seriously expect us to allow human ships to operate freely in multiple Christian colonies. I expect you to help your own people, so they don't need to ask aliens for assistance. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Park watched the confrontation with interest. Thalrix was risking his career again, speaking truth to power. The Admiral had more courage than most politicians Park had met. Admiral, you continue to overstep your authority, Vexner said coldly. Your role is military command, not political commentary. My role is to serve the Empire and protect its citizens. Sometimes that requires uncomfortable truths. What it requires is following orders from your superiors. Perhaps a reassignment is in order, somewhere far from the capital, where you can remember your place. Thalrix straightened his shoulders. Do what you must, High Counselor. I stand by my statements. Park decided to intervene before things got worse. High Counselor Admiral, perhaps we can find a solution that serves everyone's interests. The colonies need help. The Empire wants to maintain sovereignty. Earth Command doesn't want to get involved in internal Christian affairs. What if we created a joint task force? Christian and human personnel working together to respond to emergencies in Christian space. It would be under Christian authority, but with human technical and medical support. Vexner looked suspicious. Why would humanity agree to that? What do you gain? The same thing we gained here, the satisfaction of helping people who need it. And maybe, if we work together successfully, we build trust between our peoples. Maybe we turn potential enemies into actual allies. The High Counselor considered this, clearly weighing the political angles. A joint task force would let the Christian government claim credit while actually getting help for neglected colonies. It would prevent the embarrassment of multiple human ships operating independently in Christian space, and it would make the Empire look progressive and cooperative rather than cruel and neglectful. This would require extensive negotiations and approval from both governments, Vexner said slowly. Of course, but it's a starting point. I will present the idea to the High Command. No promises, Captain. It was better than outright rejection. Park would take it. The meeting broke up shortly after. As officials filed out, Administrator Venlas approached Park with a slight smile. That was well played, Captain. Offering a solution that serves their pride while actually helping people. I learned a long time ago that making powerful people look good is often the best way to get what you want. I don't care who takes credit, as long as those colonies get help. You're a good man, Captain Park. A good human. I'm grateful the universe sent you to us. Park felt embarrassed by the praise. I was just doing my job. No. Your job was to guard the border and follow orders. You chose to do something more. That's the difference between duty and compassion. Later that evening, Park walked through the colony with Lieutenant Kim. The streets were busy with people going about their lives. Children played in parks. Shops were open. It looked almost normal, except for the occasional medical station and the mix of human and Christian personnel working together. It's strange, Kim observed. 3 weeks ago we crossed that border expecting to maybe start a war. Now look at this place. Humans and Christians working together like it's the most natural thing in the world. That's what happens when people focus on helping each other instead of fighting. Do you think it will last after we leave? Park didn't answer immediately. He thought about the political tensions, the hardliners on both sides, and the difficulty of building trust between species who had been enemies for generations. But then he saw children, human and Christian, playing together without caring about differences. He saw doctors from both sides working and laughing together. He saw gratitude replacing fear. I don't know if it will last, he admitted. But I know it's possible. We proved that much. His communicator beeped. Captain, this is Dr. Lee. I need you at the medical center. Something important. Park and Kim hurried to the hospital. Dr. Lee stood with several Christian doctors, all looking excited. We did it, Captain. We found a complete cure. Not just treatment, but an actual cure that eliminates the plague entirely. We can eradicate this disease." The room erupted in celebration. Park felt something inside him finally release. "How long until we can start administering it?" "We can start production tonight. Within a week, we can cure every infected person on RT-7. The plague would be gone." "Excellent work, Doctor. All of you." "We all did it," she said. Human and Christian collaboration made this possible. The next morning, Admiral Thal was summoned to the capital. He expected punishment. Instead, he found the high command calm, even uncomfortable. "Admiral Thal, your conduct at RT-7 was unorthodox. You challenged direct orders and sided with an alien captain." "Yes, Counselor. And you saved 170,000 lives, prevented a war, and created an opportunity for cooperation with humanity." The Counselor stepped forward. "You are being promoted to High Admiral. You will lead a new initiative, a joint emergency response task force with humans." Thal froze. "You want me to work with humans?" "We want you to continue what you already started. Help our people, build bridges, and challenge us when politics overrides principles." There was a pause. "I accept," Thal said quietly. "Thank you for your trust. Don't thank us yet. This will be difficult." 2 weeks later, the Soul's Promise prepared to depart RT-7. The colony held a farewell celebration unlike anything seen before, humans and Christians together, no longer separated by fear. Captain Park stood with Administrator Venlas, Admiral Thal, and Dr. Lee as thousands gathered around them. "When we sent out our distress calls," Venlas said, "we hoped someone would answer. We never imagined our saviors would come from so far away, or that they would risk everything for people they didn't know." She looked at Park. "They didn't just save our lives. They showed us what compassion looks like." The crowd cheered. Park didn't like the attention, but he understood it wasn't about him. It was about what had been proven here, that cooperation was possible even between former enemies. Park stepped forward to speak. "When I received your distress call, I didn't think about politics or borders or whether helping you was allowed. I just knew people needed help and I could provide it. That's what humanity believes, that we have a responsibility to help those who ask, regardless of who they are or where they come from. You asked, we answered. That's all this was." But it wasn't all this was. Admiral Thalrix spoke up. "Captain Park is being modest. What happened here changed things. It changed how Christians see humans. It changed how we see ourselves and our responsibilities to our own people. And I believe it will change the galaxy. Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Joint Species Emergency Response Task Force, Christian and human personnel working together to respond to crises throughout our space. Captain Park has agreed to serve as co-commander of this initiative." Park looked at Thalrix in surprise. They had discussed the general concept, but he hadn't formally agreed to command it. Thalrix smiled slightly. "I may have been optimistic about your answer, Captain, but I knew you wouldn't refuse. You care too much about helping people." The Admiral was right. Park couldn't refuse. This was exactly what he had hoped would come from their mission: lasting cooperation, ongoing assistance to those in need, and a bridge between species who had once been enemies. "I accept," Park said. "It will be an honor to work with Admiral Thalrix and continue building this partnership." The crowd erupted in celebration. Humans and Christians cheered together. Later, as the Soul's Promise prepared for departure, Park stood on the bridge and looked at the planet below. So much had changed in such a short time. They had come here expecting to maybe start a war. Instead, they had started something better. "Captain, we're cleared for departure," the helmsman reported. "Take us out. Set course for human space." The battleship lifted from the surface and climbed toward orbit. On the ground, Christian colonists and human medical teams waved goodbye. In orbit, Admiral Thalrix's fleet held formation, not hostile, but protective. Lieutenant Kim stood beside her captain and smiled. "We did good work here, sir. We did. And we're going to do more. This is just the beginning." The beginning of what? Of showing the galaxy what's possible when people choose to help each other instead of fight. when compassion matters more than pride. The Soul's Promise left RT-7 behind, but its influence remained. In the following months, the Joint Task Force responded to multiple emergencies across Christian space. They saved lives, built trust, and proved that cooperation between former enemies was not only possible but beneficial. Other species noticed. The Yarvoth Confederation reached out with trade proposals. The Nethk Alliance proposed cultural exchange programs. Across the galaxy, assumptions about humanity began to change. On Earth, General Rodriguez reviewed the reports with disbelief. Captain Park had violated orders, entered enemy territory, and nearly triggered a war. By all traditional standards, he should have been court-martialed. Instead, she recommended him for humanity's highest honor, the Medal of Distinguished Service. At the ceremony, Park stood in uniform as the medal was placed around his neck. Leaders from multiple species attended, including Admiral Thalrix and Administrator Venlas. The speech spoke of courage, compassion, and choosing what is right over what is easy. But the moment Park remembered most came afterward. A small Christian girl approached him shyly. Her gray skin was now healthy and vibrant. It was LRA, the child Dr. Lee had saved with the first treatment. "Captain Park," she said softly. He knelt down. "Hello, LRA. How are you feeling?" "I'm all better now. My mother is better too. We came to say thank you." "You didn't need to do that." "Yes, we did. You saved us. You saved everyone. My teacher says you're a hero." "I'm just a captain who tried to do the right thing." "That's what makes you a hero." LRA stepped forward and hugged him. "Thank you for not leaving us. Thank you for showing us that humans are good." Park hugged her gently, feeling the tightness in his chest return. This was why he had done it, for children like her. That night, he stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Lieutenant Kim joined him. "What are you thinking about?" "How one small action can ripple outward and change so many lives. We just wanted to help one colony. Now we've started a movement." "Do you regret it?" Park looked at the memory of what they had built. The lives saved, the trust formed, the bridge between species. "No, I don't regret it. Not for a second." Kim smiled. "Good, because Admiral Thalrix just sent new coordinates. Another colony in distress. Then we better get the crew ready. We have work to do." The Soul's Promise left the next morning, continuing its mission across space. Humanity continued building alliances, continuing to show what compassion looked like, continuing to prove that some things mattered more than borders or fear. One ship crossed into enemy space. One captain chose mercy over orders. And the galaxy was never the same again. In the years that followed, the story of RT-7 became legend, taught as an example of courage, compassion, and cooperation. The Joint Task Force grew into a galactic organization. Admiral Thalrix and Captain Park continued working together. Dr. Lee's cure saved countless worlds. And LRA grew up to become a doctor herself, dedicating her life to helping others. And it all began with one decision to help people who needed it.